welcome to yet another episode of our program where we talk on matters to do with law, justice, and legal affairs, always to educate you, help you, and learn new laws that govern you. Our previous episode, we talked about the grounds on which a marriage can undergo a divorce, the law, the Kenyan law, what it talks about, the divorce case. And now here today, we are going to discuss about child custody. Of course, after a marriage has undergone a divorce, there always have to be who is to take custody of the children's side in that particular marriage. And to have that discussion is my guest, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, that is Kevin Doho. Welcome to the program. We're going to continue our discussion in regards to the family law, marriage that has undergone a divorce. Of course, there has to be who is going to take care of the children, of course, that the children's side in that particular marriage. And we begin here. What does the Kenyan law stipulate in regards to child custody?
Custody is the actual and legal possession of the child, actual or legal, in the sense that you have the legal rights and responsibilities of a parent in regards the custody of a child, and then we have the actual physical possession or custody of the child, either in a house or at school, things like that.
Of course, you've mentioned the legal custody and the actual custody. What is the context of each of them, the legal custody and the actual custody?
Actual custody, you might find, is what is there on the ground. Where is the child living? Where is he sleeping? Under whose power and authority, or under whose care is the child actually under? Then we have legal custody. Legal custody is those rights and responsibilities that the law presumes a parent has. For example, the right to educate, the right to discipline, to warn, to advise, to take care of the child's religious belief system, provide the necessities of life, for example, food, clothing, shelter, education, and health. So you have certain rights and responsibilities legally. But actual custody is a person who is day-to-day with the child. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, I will ask this particular question. When there is a divorce, of course, child custody mostly arises when the two parents have separated. At that point where the parents have separated, where does the court pick it up from to ensure that there is proper child custody? Immediately, or rather after some time the marriage has undergone a divorce?
So there are two portions during divorce. So you might find the divorce has happened, by the time divorce proceedings have happened, parties have separated for many years. So for example, 3, 4, 5 years. In between, the children's interests have to be taken care of. So sometimes the children's case will come even before the divorce case is determined. And those are two different laws. The law of divorce and the law of children are two different laws. So you might find the child's interests are best served by the court separately, without the court involving itself on the controversy between the mother and the father. So at that point when there is separation, there must be an agreement on who will be living day-to-day with the children and who will be supporting that. Sometimes we have a controversy where both parties want exclusive full custody. And we might have situations where one of the spouses has abandoned or has just gone and disappeared and does refuse to take up responsibility for the children. Then the law will have to come in and see to it that that child is taken care of. If there is allegations that one party is superior in providing and granting the child a better environment, and the other spouse is denying, the court has to listen to the facts, and once it sees the facts, it will make a decision based on certain principles. One of the most important principles is the best interest of the child. Yes.
Does the court now move to compel one of the parties or rather one of the parents to take child custody?
There is an order that can be made under Section 83, where the court actually makes an order that this child shall be in the custody of this parent, and the law will now hold you liable for the best interest of that child. For example, you might find some parents abandoning their children in the streets of Nairobi, or refusing to support their children in education, in various ways. For example, you might find somebody has gotten a green card, gone abroad and left the child either with the grandmother or the grandfather. And when the person is abroad, does not send any money to support the children. So the court might inquire and make certain orders to protect that child's interests. And they are compulsory orders. You can't just ignore those orders. Sometimes somebody has not been paying school fees, has not been supporting the mother in the upbringing of the children. A court can actually make certain orders to ensure the parent provides the actual support that the child needs. Yes.
You mentioned about one of the parents neglecting basic child maintenance roles while in abroad. Can the court make a ruling, or rather can the court make a determination in a way in that the person abroad can be compelled back to the country?
What I have seen in a different case I handled is that once the party comes into Kenya, a court order can actually issue to the immigration officials to prohibiting that person from leaving the country. However, custody of somebody being forced back into the country is rather hard, rather difficult. A court will be very it's not easy for a court to grant such an order. What it can do is that it can make an order expanding the Kenyan the court's jurisdiction in Kenya. It can extend that jurisdiction to that person. Maybe he's living in Britain. So a court order or a ruling will move from Kenyan courts through the Foreign Affairs Ministry by diplomatic pouch to the government of the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Britain. Then the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Britain will give that court order to the High Court the High Court in England, and then the English court will proceed to enforce the Kenyan judgment on custody and maintenance. The difficulty we usually have is that this is an old law on maintenance of either a wife or of children. So you might find in some jurisdictions the law might have been permissive of enforcement of foreign judgments. For example, us here in Kenya, we have the Foreign Judgments Act, which seeks to recognize such judgments here in Kenya. For example, you might find, I've handled a case where the husband and wife living in Kenya have British citizenship. So the controversy revolved after the divorce. It was a Muslim marriage. So the wife left, or the mother left with the children. And now we were instructed to seek for the maintenance of the children in Britain. They're living in Britain, but the man is in Kenya. So we have that type of conflict of laws resolution mechanism where governments work together to ensure the best interest of the child. And there are various international conventions which have sought to regularize international disputes on children and marital affairs. Yes.
From where I sit and picking on what you're talking about is that the law on child custody is mostly and always centered on the best interest of the child. So at this point, what does the court look at in determining the child custody? Who is to take care of the child in a scenario where the two parents have divorced?
Okay, you'll have to differentiate between custody and maintenance. Custody is the one with that legal obligation to provide for the child's upkeep and day-to-day activities and has actual possession. So you might find the court will say it is split custody, 50-50 custody. The child will be living with the mother maybe during the school days, then in the holidays the child will be living, maybe 2 holidays, the child will be living with the father. Then there is sometimes where the court just awards full custody to one person and provides maintenance obligations for the other party. So that is what courts do. Now, when looking at who to award custody, Section 82 or 84 of the Children's Act provides certain criteria of how to determine custody. You look at the child's religious beliefs, the child's preferences, what the relatives have to say about the whole situation, who has better, why the child is happier. It will have to look at what the parties themselves are saying in court. Sometimes the court will make a direction that a children's officer goes and looks at the environment where the child is living and write a report to court. Then the court will be fully informed of the facts of the life of these parties before court, so that it can make the correct determination on how, on who should have custody, primary custody or secondary custody.
What is the difference between child custody and child maintenance?
Maintenance is the right of the child to be supported in life through material needs: food, clothing, shelter, education, health, and entertainment. So those 5 or 6 are the issues of maintenance. Custody is only about where does the child live and who has obligations to ensure that that child is safe, that child is healthy, that child is happy, that child is educated. So you might pay for somebody else to do it for you, but you yourself is, in the eyes of the law, you are the one providing the education, the health, the everything. Now, sometimes you might find one party loses custody. So you might find the mother gets custody, the father does not have custody. So the father might be told, even if you don't have custody, you still have obligations of maintaining the child. So the courts in Kenya have been balancing between the father and the mother to have equal obligations, because the constitution on the part of children, it says both a mother and the father have equal responsibilities to support the child. So on those 5 duties, you might find the father is told to provide school fees, healthcare, and the mother is to provide shelter, clothing, and education. So there might be a balance. So you pay school fees and you make sure the NHF card or any other medical insurance which is superior is provided, and basically that's what the man will be told to do. As far as food, clothing, and shelter, maybe they might be split 50-50. Maybe rent, you'll be paying half the rent and things like that. So as far as the man is concerned, he's only maintaining. He has no custody. Yes.
And the issue of custody, the child, is it determined by what the court says in regards to the age of the children, the ability of the one of the parents to take care of, or assuming there's a 14-year-old, 7-year-old, 4-year-old, how does the court determine so that all of the children can have custody of a parent?
What usually happens is, one of the principles of determining custody is the situation of their siblings. So it's usually difficult for a child to be split up from their siblings. So usually they go as a batch, they're not split mostly. So you might find yourself trying to prove the same issues, but now with different or more children involved. For example, where there is a separation and there are 3-4 children from the 4 issues from the marriage. So you might look at that. It's actually to obtain the best interest of the child. It's an investigation. It's an investigation that is being conducted by the court, so that once all these facts come out, the court now is able to make an informed and judicious decision on who should have custody and what type of maintenance, at what level will there be a good level of support for the child to grow and to prosper, or to come up as an upstanding citizen of this country. So those are the types of facts that the court has to interrogate.
And what do they look at in a case where the children are of different ages? Of course, an older child and a younger child.
Now that is now where wisdom comes in. That's why we make sure we have judges who are well educated and well acclimatized to life. So most of the time, no child has superior rights over the other children. So you might find yourself opening up yourself to certain questions when you try and have favoritism on one child. So both children have rights against the parents. They have the parents have obligations to all the children equally. So there is no superior child to the other. So you have to consider the type of situation where they will live a very comfortable and normal life as far as the parents can provide, or as far as the means of the parents is available to provide for the children.
What if one of the children, per se, decides or makes a claim that he or she wants to be under this particular parent's custody, while the court has determined that this is the particular parent or rather guardian that is supposed to have custody of the children, but one of the children says, I want to be under the custody of this another parent. So what does how does the law now handle such a case?
For the court will have, children are very sensitive, so the court do not make decisions on custody on the fly. They interrogate the issues, and one of the issues when considering who to award custody is what the child is saying. So either the parents will be told, go out of the room, let me talk to Baba here. Baba, who do you want to live with? Kwa nini? What's going on? So that the child is now able to speak, not to a big judge, but the judge tries, or the magistrate will try and make the child comfortable and ask about the wishes, the dreams, the aspirations of the child, so that by the time the custody of the child is being awarded, the child's interests have been known and are being protected. Now, if later, after the awarding of custody, something else happened and the child starts running away, maybe at 15, 16, she's running to live with the father, and yet custody was awarded to the mother, now that becomes something else. Now, the father might come to court and say there are new facts that have arisen that the court needs to set aside the ruling where it awarded custody to the mother, and it needs to award me custody. Either there is things have cropped up in the home, or where the mother has the home that the mother has provided. Either there is another man in that house. There are various financial difficulties, or basically there is issues to do with discipline, and so the courts will have to look at the entire issue again and determine who can continue with custody. Life is not totally constant. There are ups, there are downs. So the constant rule is that the courts have jurisdiction over all children. So whatever happens to that child is a concern for the court. And at any time, anyone can approach the children's court for the best interest of the child. Either a children's officer, a police officer, even a neighbor. If you feel there is something going on that is not right, you can report it to the children's officer. Most of the police stations have an office for children, and then the children's officer will take over and protect or seek for the better maintenance of that child.
The normality in our society is that the mother is the one entitled to take care of younger kids, perhaps those that cannot make their own decision. Of course, that is what is perceived and seen and absorbed even in our societies. And that is when I ask this question, is there a limitation of a certain age that the mother should or must have the children before now the custodial protection of the child is given maybe to the other parent, per se the father now in regards to that?
Most of the time, the best interest of the child is awarded to the person who has the best means of providing for the child. Means not only in a material sense, but also in time. Does, for example, does the mother have more time to dedicate to the child, have more expertise? Is a child of a gender where the mother will, for example, a girl, the girl will be best served by living with her mother? If it's a boy, does he have certain needs that various issues that have cropped up during that litigation of custody are best served by giving custody to the mother? So the questions are asked in court to ascertain who has the time and the resources to take care of the child, and who has the value system which the child can learn from practically, not as a story, but practically seeing and experiencing decisions of their parent. So those are the types of questions that have to be balanced, and then a good decision can be arrived at. Yes.
And of course, separation of parents, it's something that is it's a more of legal and also more of a society thing, and let's say a custom thing. That is what a certain community believes in regards to child custody and maintenance under their customs, and there is what the law stipulates in regards to child custody and maintenance. Is there conflict that arises in between a community that says, according to our customs, this is how we define what our child custody should be, and what the law says?
So one of the principles of awarding custody is the sentiments of the relatives. So the community itself, because a child is brought up by a village, it's not only one person bringing the child up. So that is one of the considerations a court will have. But it's not going to follow that consideration of the community blindly. It has to balance it with the best interest of the child, which is usually primordial and primary. So you might not have a carte blanche to say, once there's separation, the children belong to the man, or they have to go live with the man's shosho or something like that. The court has to look at who has the best resources and time and morals or a value system that will guarantee or will, to a greater extent, ensure that the best interests of the child are served.
And as we conclude this particular discussion on child custody and maintenance under the Kenyan law, there is that perception automatically that perceives that a father is the one entitled to child maintenance, of course, because of being the father and what we perceive. But again, is there that determination that this particular parent has more more responsibilities on the child than the other parent?
Legally, under the Constitution, each of them have equal obligation and equal rights over children, the mother and the father. But obviously, there is what is in the books and what is actually happening. What's actually happening, you find most of the time it's the mother who has more obligations to make sure the child is fed and clothed every day, is attending school every day, if he's fall sick, that's usually what the mothers are there for mostly. The cultural background we have is that men are out there earning money day in, day out. Sometimes they work Sunday to Sunday, either as a matatu driver or as a cleaner or as a restaurant waiter. You find very little time. The men have been spending very little time in the house. So you might not have, as a man, the right perspective, even catching on that the child has fallen sick or is not feeling well, or has done the homework, things like that. But as we have progressed in society and as people become more and more financially stabilized, you find parents now are having equal responsibility. You might find the man coming home early from work to do the homework with the children, to make sure the school work has been done, to make sure sometimes the boys have bathed and have done their bit. Maybe they were to practice, go out for practicing or football or something like that. So you might find they become more equal, more egalitarian between the man and the wife. So the father and the mother. So you might find as we progress and as we stabilize, we might find more and more time now being freed up from the economic chase or the economic stabilizing activities now to the nurturing and the nurturing of the children part. And sometimes it's fun. It's something that is a gift to in this life to have children, and I believe it's something that people have experienced very well for a long time.
And finally, what happens if someone goes against the court directives in regards to child custody and maintenance?
Now, when you disobey a court order, there is a process. that you can follow under the Contempt of Court Act. But the most serious one is if it was abduction, if it was kidnapping, you will face other ramifications under the Penal Code and under the Children's Code. So you might be answerable before a criminal court or before the same court that gave the order, but now for contempt of court. And now that will also lead to about 6 months, at most 6 months imprisonment. Yes.
And that is where we end up this particular discussion. Thank you so much for making time to have this particular discussion.
You're welcome.
And that is our discussion in regards to child custody and child maintenance, where we've been talking about the law on what it says in regards to parents that have divorced in taking care of their children that was sired in that particular marriage. And because when there is a marriage, there is hope that people are going to stay forever. But comes a time where compelling reason arise and people separate. But the child is the most centered in regards to the Kenyan law. And that is where we wind up our discussion. Thank you for always making time to catch up with our episode. Remember, you can catch up with our previous episode on the law on divorce so that you can understand where we're coming from in regards to child custody. My name is Chris Sambo, and see you on the next episode. Goodbye.